As a software developer, I often receive source code that other developers have written, and then the goal is that I like to understand the source code, and so that I can potentially use this code or some part of it in my projects. So often this source code comes with very little or no documentation, and that actually can be quite challenging, because without a documentation I don't have any way of understanding easily that how this program is structured, how this works. I have been asking myself, how can I be more efficient or more productive when it comes to looking into the source code that other developers have written, and I have no way of asking those developers and the authors of this source code some questions, and so that they can explain this to me, their code to me. So so some ideas came to my mind, and I have been applying those ideas, and I found it quite useful, and that actually made me more productive when working with when I spend time with some software code and try to understand this. So the last year I read a book called How to Read a Book. This book was written by Adler Mortimier, and he wrote this book to share advice on how someone can become a better reader of non-fiction materials. I found this was a very useful book, and that actually helped me become a better non-fiction reader. And then I saw that many of the suggestions the author had shared in that book could also apply to my to reading or understanding of the software source code. Let me share some of those ideas or some of those tips that I found quite helpful. So Adler Mortimer suggested that the very first step of reading a book is to do a pre-reading. In the pre-reading phase, you would identify the author's problem, which means an author has written a non-fiction book with the intention of solving a particular problem, and then author had shared some solution to that problem. So how does it apply to the software program? The software program also has a problem, which we say it has a use case in the terminology of software engineering. So if we want to simplify this, basically it takes some input and then it applies some transformation and generates some output. That's the very first thing. Is the first question that I would ask: what is this program taking as an input, and what output it's producing? So at this phase, I would not look into anything that comes in between, any kind of implementation details, the software and code structure and things like that. No, I would skip this at the very beginning. I'll just try to run this program and see observe what is the input going into the program and what's the output it is producing. So once I complete this step, I would have a very good understanding or a very high level understanding of the problem that the program is trying to solve. Next thing is that understanding of the code, which I begin by looking into the main function. And then I see what the main function is basically the driver that is calling other functions as the worker, right? So think of this program or the project has a bunch of different functions. Each of these functions has different roles, and then instead of kind of looking into each function in isolation and then losing my mind, then I would look into the main function and I see the flow, that how this main function is basically calling the other functions in sequence. So from there I would construct or write down some sort of workflow based on my understanding that maybe the main function is calling 10 other functions in a particular sequence. So, and then I would try to understand what each of these function is doing at an intuitive level. I will not go into any details of each of these child functions or worker function. I'll just try to understand that what each function is doing. Is very likely that several of the things that I'll not understand by looking into the code. So I'll be very honest to myself that whatever I understand by looking into the main function and as its interaction with the other worker function, I'll write down what I understand and then what I don't understand. Oftentimes when I write down what I don't understand, and then it's very clear to myself that what I don't understand, then as I start looking a bit more, then I kind of find answer to these questions. So this process of some writing down my understanding and then identifying what I don't understand has been very helpful. Then sometimes then I will try to the part that I don't understand, I would try to take that function in isolation and then maybe get some sample input, pass some sample input to that function, and then see what output coming out of this. So this is how I get an intuitive understanding of how this program works. Since nowadays I'm doing a lot of coding with Python, so for example, a project that source code that I recently looked into, it was its main function was part of a Python script. And if you are familiar with Python, you know that the Python script is not much intuitive, much interactive, because all you can do is just invoke it from a command line. And then it will give you some output. So it's not much interactive. It's just one interaction you have that is script. So what I did, I copied the content of the Python script to a Jupyter notebook, especially, and then all the steps that are part of the main function, I kind of put it into different cells so that I could kind of execute each of the steps in the main function one at a time and examine the input and the output. And then going through this exercise, I actually become very productive in my understanding of the source code, and I could also be very selective. I did not waste too much time in trying to understand the things that are not much relevant. So understanding the big picture, how the program works at a high level, how it is structured, what are the different parts and the functions in the program. From that exercise, then I would have a very good understanding of its structure, and then I'll be able to identify that what are the pieces that I'm more interested in. Now I can go even deeper. Maybe out of the 10 functions that the main function is calling, maybe 2 of these functions are very relevant to my project that I'm interested in reusing in my projects. Then I can jump right there and then understand this deeply.